Hello, all. Welcome. FMA discussion. Tonight is episode 85, and tonight we are featuring. Brother, this is a first for FMA discussion. We have siblings on. We've had a father and son, but new territory. So I want to welcome guests Sixto and Baste Carlos. Hi, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Dean.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, everyone.
So, how you guys doing today? So, you guys. So let me get this right. So, Baste, did you just move?
Yeah, I'm here in Minnesota, freezing right now with my California body.
So why would you move? Just kidding. But why would you move from California to Minnesota?
Well, let's just say I'm a victim of the pandemic for now.
Yeah. God,
Pandemic sabbatical. How's that?
Yeah, Minnesota. Wow. And how about and how's let's so I always just like to find out from different parts of the world or states for that matter, kind of status quo as far as COVID. So I know you just moved to Minnesota, but you guys locked down or what's going on over there?
I think like restaurants are just all like to go. So all takeouts,
Oh, you got to work
grocery search.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Still open, but no events and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, like it's not like San Francisco where I live, where almost everyone I saw, almost everyone wore masks.
Yeah.
Over here, I look like the weird guy in some places where what the hell is he wearing?
Yeah. It's
There are a lot of compliant people, but it's still like not as
yeah.
not,
Oh, man, hopefully we get out of it.
as compared to San Francisco. Yeah.
How about you, Sixo? What's the current status quo in the Philippines, you guys?
Chaos. It's chaos here. It's reflective of our culture and of our martial art, Filipino martial arts. It's chaotic. The government doesn't know what it's doing. At least people wear masks, and some are actually social distancing, but overall it's chaos. So
because you guys go bounce back and forth. When I talk to Brandon, like 1 week things are okay, and the next week it's like like you just said, chaos. You know what I mean? Like it's just
that's true.
I don't know. Hopefully by spring we'll all be singing a different tune.
Yeah.
But all right. So what I'm gonna do is, since there's both of you, I'm gonna kind of bounce back and forth who gets what question first, just so everybody be fair. Each one of you get kind of like a clean shot at something. On this one though, let's just we'll start with you, Baste. First experience in FMA. When? Who went in where?
Okay, FMA wise, oh wow, it's a long story. Where we start? So I would just to give some flavor. Like my brother and I had been doing a lot of other martial arts prior to FMA. Like we did like bare knuckle karate, WTF taekwondo, and competed and all that. But eventually, like we ventured into this martial art called Sarian, which is a modern Filipino martial art. It's an offshoot of JKD with a Filipino flavor.
Interesting.
Expound on that some other time because it's another like a very, I would say, rare martial art as of now, and I've actually got a lot of questions lately on Messenger, like asking me what's that, So
yeah, I never heard of it.
Some other time we'll venture to that, but it's just to make it a quick description. It's a Filipino take on JKD. It's a JKD offshoot, but they did have some sticks, so that's how we got first introduced to sticks, albeit not in a traditional way.
Okay.
Then our first formal traditional FMA is actually Lameco under Jun Pablos, who was the sparring partner of Edgar Solite.
Yeah. Oh, how interesting! I didn't realize that's who you guys train. Oh, how fascinating! Yeah. So more of a PTK flavor then, right?
Yep. So they were like brothers. I mean, like every single.
No, I heard.
Was like us training with Edgar as well, because like every two we do, it's like, oh, Edgar did it this way, Edgar did it that way. Edgar, like, and I kind of like trained this way. He everybody had a strong, how they say, like it was like a game about like Edgar's presence was there even when he wasn't physically there. That was
No, I've heard that June was so instrumental in the development of Lamego, just from talking to some of the Lamego guys and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, and through the years, it was just mostly like, he trained me and my brother like the traditional way, which is like either one or a small group or just the two of us. So in our case, it was just the two of us every Sunday back then. So he taught us our foundation in FMA, which is great because like from that, and again, this is another story. It's my Edgar Solite, a la Edgar Solite Bruce Lee story because Edgar was an inspiration for me
Mhm.
Yeah.
in terms
True.
of like exploring FMA from where like June would talk about, oh, Edgar and I had to like swim like through waist deep waters to
Oh
get into
yeah.
Caballero's house
Yeah.
because it's nearer to just swim than walk the other way.
There's some stories about that
Yeah.
whole journey.
Yeah, or like whenever I go to Caballero's house, the kids would like ask me to bring whatever flavor of bread or whatever, and we gifted.
Mm,
But they have a lot of stories to tell. Like, or Gahe was his uncle. Leo Gahe was his uncle.
Bubble, yeah.
Uh, he had some stories about training in the beach, doing a lot of conditioning.
Mm,
And his stories about Tatang Ilustrisimo, and also there's some other styles that they also did. It's just doesn't register as much, but more of like the less known masters that they trained with.
yeah. I just got one quick question for you. When you both started training with you, and we're going to get to Sixto and his initial journey, which I'm sure sounds like it's going to parallel what you described. Was this in other words, when Lameko first came out, there was a period of time before the KI influence. Was that when you guys were training? In other words, was KI in it at that point or not yet?
Yes, the KI influence and what you call relationship was there already.
Okay, okay.
That by the time we met with June, there were plenty of references to Tatang as well as to Tony Diego and the different ways of doing things. Plus also stories about conversations, updates on conversations with Edgar, because it was kind of like an interesting and exciting time for them.
Yeah.
I think like before Edgar, correct me if I'm wrong, because I wasn't in the US back then, but the impression I was getting was like, of course, like this was before the internet, right? So
Mm,
most of, especially West Coast USA Cali / Eskrima Arnis was very Stockton and LA,
yeah, I mean, much to
right?
Gai's credit, and I give him full credit for it. For as far as the East Coast, New York, I mean, he like an absolute influence because through Guy Bizio, Bregaland,
Yeah,
Sayat, Atienza's father, all kind of obviously Tuan Bill McGrath and all that. So but nothing comparatively speaking to Stockton.
yeah. So the impression I was getting was that Edgar was the first ambassador,
Mhm.
different subgroup or different region or different. I would say the Luneta mecca
To
of
me, he was a Bruce Lee of FMA. When
yeah.
I got Mark
So
Wiley's book, and I read Mark Wiley's book, and I'm like, look, I mean, this is late '90s. I don't know anything. I'm just fascinated by reading about him and Illustrissimo. And to me, it was because I was at JKD then. I'm like, this guy is the JKD of FMA, pulling from
yeah,
different systems and all that. So
yeah, and
obviously,
and that since you mentioned is the JKD and Bruce Lee of FMA, it's the same philosophy that I followed. That when I did Sarian, I had a constant question in my mind that I'm gonna travel to maybe Hong Kong and learn Wing Chun. I'm
yeah,
gonna go to like even the US and learn under every single like JKD instructor over there and learn.
mm,
My uh, June Pueblos talked so much fondly about Edgar Solite, about their brotherly bond
mm,
together, because they were training partners.
yeah, yeah.
That with every single master that they trained, that I kind of like yearned to like, all right, you know, there's something that June can teach me, but one thing that's different probably is also, it's like radiation. That when you're exposed to the source, there's a different aura probably that you feel, and that's what I just
Mhm.
want to see. Like when they talk about Caballero hitting this strike and the stick flies because of the force of the power, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Pueblos had a strong, he had strong strikes. He was one of the strongest hitters I've seen growing up. But I also wanted to know, in words, that was what they used to say. There weren't any videos. I
Mm.
wanted to feel it for myself, and that's why, like training with Master Olavides in eventually, again, just to follow chronologically, like Lameco, and we went to KI, we went to PTK. For me, the last missing link to complete the Edgar Solite quest of my
Yeah.
complete the chain was when I trained did our apprenticeship under Master Olavides, that I felt like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah.
Now I could piece in all the big stories,
You had the puzzle. Yeah.
all the small stories, and like, through the decades, and like,
Mm.
this is what they meant. This is what they meant. Not that my instructors were lacking, but there's just so much you could talk about, even in years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Wow.
then when you talk to different instructors, that's how they fill it in. Now from Lameco, we went to KI, and then June Pueblos again was very instrumental because he knew everyone from all the Solite instructors, Solite related instructors, from Tang to Bangtoni to Edgar Solite, I mean to Leo Gahe, who was his uncle,
Yeah.
and Olavides. But to me, like, I just felt kind of like, my quest was completed in that
Yeah.
regard. Solite quest by 2001. So I heard a lot about stories about, like, and I really appreciated June Pueblos because he's not only a good coach in teaching the basics and what, he's also a good motivator.
Mm.
Mm.
Tell me and my brother stories. He would tell me and my brother, like, let me tell you about the tale of a great orator, like a guy who like always joins like poem recitation contests.
Mm.
He memorized one, but he always won every single competition that he went into, versus this person who memorized 100 orations but never won a single contest.
Yeah. Right. And far as like, wow.
So that's how he kind of like explained, stick to the
Yeah.
basics, and, and also like, yeah, he wasn't as old as the other instructors, so he was kind of like a big brother to us.
Mm.
And there were always like this yearning for him, of course, to follow to the US because Edgar probably needed a number two, and they were training partners for years back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. You know.
And he always like talked about, yeah, Edgar spoke to me the other week. How do I get here? Maybe I should apply for school and then go to school in the US, and so on and so forth. And sad to say, it never happened. I wish it did. That would have been a different,
Mm.
although Edgar had a great legacy in California, but I'm just thinking like, wow, just imagine if also June would have gone there, what more would have happened?
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah.
So Sixto,
So
what say you?
Again, we were brothers, so we went through the same thing. Bastes already mentioned that karate, taekwondo. Eventually, we went to. Actually, I also did some kung fu when I was younger, and some animal style, which I forgot. And in uni, I also studied some Wing Chun, so I
Okay.
know how to flow. That's why June liked me when we did some flow drills. I could flow well.
Oh, from the Wing Chun.
Otherwise, from the Wing Chun, yeah. I guess Wing Chun did help me in flowing. The thing about Sarian is, like Basta mentioned, it's not practiced so much anymore. But that's where we met a lot of guys. A lot of the DJJ black belts in the Philippines, the original ones came from Sarian. I think you were interviewed by Professor Alvin Aguilar. Oh, that's where we met him.
Oh, that's right.
And
Wow. Can I just ask a quick question of you? Like,
okay,
how did it get there? Who headed the system? I'm just so fascinated by this because I'd never heard of it. Like, there had to be a Western component
it
bringing
did,
over
yeah.
there.
But Basta, can you tell him the story? I think the origin of Sarian.
yeah, I may be wrong. It's been decades, but
Yeah. I'm just curious. Is all.
but the main story was like, you know how we used to have the U.S. bases in the Philippines, the Air Force and the naval bases in the
Okay.
Philippines.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and that was a different era too. And that's one thing that's interesting was, we used to go to karate tournaments near the base and all that. So that connection with the U.S. So it's disregard the founder of Sarian. If I remember it right, the founder was practicing some other art, and then two Americans, I think, saw him practicing and said like, "Oh, that looks good, but take a look at this."
Oh, so it's kind of like a fusion
JKD.
exchange. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just curious. Okay.
From me, and this is my own observation, because you and I are probably aware that there's different views and different different, how they say, offshoots, and different groups that have different views on JKD and what it should be and what it is.
Oh yeah.
But the way I saw it was, it's probably similar to Jesse Glover's.
I tell you, his hands. I mean, yeah. I mean, when you talk about the offshoots, I mean, you got the Anasano funnel, and then you got Ted Wong, and that's pretty much, generally speaking. But
Jesse Glover probably on the latter stage. So this is like no sticky hands and all that. It's mainly hitting pads plus
yeah. No,
hitting the groin. So it wasn't kickboxing oriented at all, because almost every session we practice kicking the groin and the knees. So and basically when we sparred, and Sixto has good story about getting
There's a story there.
the balls and kicking someone in the balls too, and they both survived to have kids. So I guess
so
that's
we
another.
learned that you could take a good groin shot and still reproduce. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So the founder learned from those two American guys. Apparently, it was like an apprentice. Well, it was like learning from the guys, not learning to be certified. So there's no
Yeah.
yes,
No,
there's
it's
no
interesting.
really claim to a lineage.
Yeah.
And of course, part of that, even if they say that, like we do have JKD as strongly as our foundation, we can't claim ourselves as JKD, because there's
No,
no,
I got you. Oh, yeah, I
we
got
don't
you.
even know which lineage.
Yeah, where it came from. It's just two Americans that came over, and no, I think it's fascinating. So, Sixto, let's get back to you. I know you deviated that part over to your brother for better clarification, but back to any insights on your journey, as far as that you wanted to share with us in the beginning.
Okay, the thing about Sarian is it's very open-minded. Let's say we're encouraged. Okay, we can like Alvin. Alvin went to BJJ.
Yeah.
Baste and I focused on Filipino martial arts, and the thing was we didn't tell each other. So when we meet in the gym, we try out stuff.
We sparred.
We sparred full contact. Alvin was such a dick. We sparred. Okay, Alvin, let's spar with weapons. He didn't know. Baste and I were heavily into FMA back then. So I was hitting him hard. I was beating him. You know what that dick did to me? He suplexed me on cement. I just remember my feet up, flying to the air on the ground.
Oh my God, WWE, huh?
So anyway, Alvin was a very good fighter, and we had this rivalry. We were friends, okay, but we in the gym you don't really like each other, right? So there was this drill. He took my leg, spun it, so he almost popped my knee. Okay, I said, okay, let's do that again. I smashed his groin. He fell on the ground. So that was how Sarian was way back then. We didn't have.
You guys are friends now, though, right?
Huh?
You guys are good now. You guys are friends now.
Of course.
Yeah.
We've gone. We have this history, okay?
Okay.
We have this long history together, okay? We have a long, and it
Good,
was all
good.
developed CH, okay?
Dean, I guess the most important part is like that's where the exchange happened eventually, because people asking, where did you learn this, and we were like, where did you learn that? We only see that at the UFC, and he's like, oh, I've been training BJJ. So that's when the exchange.
We exchanged.
Him in FMA, he trained us in BJJ, and we got.
He taught us BJJ, we taught him FMA. So that was And the thing about Sarian, it's good. We tried the techniques. I learned some, let's say, hand-to-hand techniques from FMA. Then I'll try it in Sarian. Oh, that shit won't work. I got hit in the face. So it was painful training. Again, we didn't have mouth guards. We didn't have gloves. We didn't have groin guards. So we just went at it. So I guess Sarian, but then, now that we think about it, Sarian was it was instrumental. It made us think. And
Yeah.
okay, so after
Just to add
Sarian,
more, just to add more legend to it, like remember they called it a gym. It's actually
oh yeah,
so so people would ask like, "Where's the gym?" And people would really need, and this was before the internet. People would need to
Yeah.
oh, I turn left here, turn right there, and whatever. So,
yeah,
but
it
we
was a bad.
ventured out to KI, kuya, like from Lameco to KI.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so we went on to Lameco. I think Baste already described Kuya. We used to call him Kuya Jun.
Yeah.
He never wanted to be called master. He was Kuya Jun, and I'd like to add, amongst the instructors, he was the most humble of all. Very low key, very low key
Yeah, I
person.
don't hear much about him. Yeah.
And
He's in the UK, Scotland.
Okay. But okay.
Jun Pueblos had this philosophy: instead of arguing, instead of fighting, come on, let's just train. That was his philosophy, and until now we carry that. Instead of arguing, blah blah blah, come on, let's just do 1,000 strikes. That's it. And so Basta and I were training in Lameco for a couple of years now. Then Kuya Jun then he saw our potential, and he wanted to introduce us to the other masters. That was when he started bringing us to Luneta, and he introduced us to Mang Tony. Tatang, actually, it was Tatang first, then Mang Tony. But Mang Tony back then he was not the type where you can go to Luneta. Hi, I'd like to learn Calis Illustrissimo. He won't teach you.
Okay.
It took a while for us to warm up with Mang Tony, di ba, Baste? He didn't want to teach us. But what we did was, June knew some fundamentals of KI, so he taught us. Then, when we were in Luneta, we would copy what Mang Tony would teach his other students.
Okay.
We would be like 10 feet away
Yeah.
from where he was teaching.
And we'd copy. So the legend of melting pot, the melting pot of exchanging knowledge. No, not really. I don't think so. Masters were very secretive in Luneta. Okay, anyway, going back to Mang Tony. So he saw me and Baste that we kept on copying, and we were actually already getting it. And I remember specifically Baste, it was a knife drill. We were copying him. He was teaching this student, and we were copying it, and we were about getting it maybe 90% of the technique. Then he approached us. Come on, guys, I'll teach you properly.
Oh, that was nice. Oh, okay.
But I think like before that, also one of our instructors who already passed away is Robert Morales.
Amang Robert, yeah.
He's also a student of Tatang, so he was our
Judo
instructor, and he also tried to teach us a little bit of KI. And then he noticed, like, hey, you guys know the basics. I got no more to teach you. I should really push Tony to help you guys. So he was also gave him a nudge.
Yeah, he was very.
June and June were the two people who were trying to nudge Tony, Mang Tony as well on the side.
Oh, nice of them. Okay. So
they.
Go ahead, Sixto. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we went on training then. Then I guess so. There was a tournament. I think I told you about it. Doug Marcaida's brother, RJ Marcaida. We met the guy in that tournament, and I didn't know the guy, so I was pushing him away to train in another team. But he was persistent. He became our friend. He went. So he went with us in Luneta. He trained with us with Mang Tony and with Kuya Jun in Lameco also. So after training with Mang Tony, Kuya Jun told us, "Hey guys, wanna train with Leo Gahe? Basta, di ba?"
I was
Then,
absent that day.
huh?
I was absent that day.
I were absent that day.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
guys,
yeah. Okay, this is what happened. Okay. Anyway, I'll tell the story. Okay. Gahe went to Luneta to visit Ilustrisimo.
I
That's
think
where we
I
met
heard.
him.
Okay, okay, okay.
And
you have photos of that.
I still have that photo. The first time we met him.
Yeah, I think I've heard the story. Like they met and they were kind of showing. Well, I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I don't know, that was it. That was it. So that was our exposure. That was our first meeting with Leo Gahe.
How did
Uh,
you interact? Just for the audience sake, when Guy came to the park and met, GM Illustrisimo, like how was the interaction? I mean, you know.
because Tatang was very cool. Anybody who would approach him, Tatang was very nice. Di ba? Basta, and he
Yeah,
would show, if you ask him anything, or Tatang, how do you counter this? He'd show a technique. Then you counter that. Then, but what about this Tatang? Tatang was very nice. And to tell
Hmm.
you the truth, for each question you ask, Tatang had an answer.
I heard he was just an absolutely amazing on the fly. I hear that
Yeah,
from everybody. Just yeah.
and
Tatang
he
was
was used to people visiting too. So he was a stranger to like strangers.
Yeah, yeah,
he
He
was
would just
well
be like,
dressed.
okay.
yeah.
He was well dressed. Yeah,
What year?
and
He was
pardon me.
saying he was saying that
What
he's a
year
well-dressed
about?
person.
What year?
Yeah, I'm just curious. What year about was this?
We started KI maybe 1990 or 1991. I really don't remember the exact date. We
Hard
met
to say.
Leo Gahe 1994.
Okay, okay.
93 probably.
I think probably 94. I remember 94. I was taking up my master's then. Then but another thing about Tatang, he spoke very good English. He spoke very good English. So if you I guess he was a seaman, and a lot of
Mm,
Filipinos of his generation spoke English very well. Di ba, Baste?
mm,
He spoke
Yeah,
very well. He can teach very well. The thing about Tatang was, because we were also direct students, we'd go there. Tatang, can you teach us? He couldn't teach for so long. Maybe he can teach your technique, maybe a few minutes. Then he'll sit down and
he
make
gets
you move.
tired.
Yeah,
he was up there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
but
in
that's why a lot of people claim that they were taught by Tatang. I don't know. I am a bit. It wasn't exactly teaching during that time already. When he was younger, when he was with Mang Tony, Mang Romy, the other seniors, yes, he was teaching directly. But later on, he was in his 80s, basta, so he couldn't
yeah,
really teach for
yeah,
that long.
he was up
But
there.
again,
yeah,
not
it's
again, he
more
was
con-
able to impart a lot of knowledge.
yeah. If you were like probably smart enough to kind of decipher some quick stuff he was showing, then yes. But for most, as compared to like a detailed, probably when he was, of course, and he used to get tired too some days, especially when it was hot. You know,
Mm.
Yeah,
still kind of drag him back, like, hey, how about this? Show me
yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, he was. He passed. If I'm correct, 97 at
Yeah,
94 years old, right? So
yeah,
if you're referencing 91, 93, I mean, he's late 80s, like early 90s. I mean, that's
Yeah,
yeah.
he was still jogging at that age back then.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's freaking seeing that guy
yeah.
jogging around, man. That's
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and as my brother was just about to say, like he was a good dresser, and
very good.
I wanted that's a different side of Tatang, and not only Tatang, but also all the other old men that we used to see at Luneta,
mm.
that they wore their Sunday best.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like I see the videos, you see
Because
the
it was more of like for them it was a Sunday social club. You know,
yeah,
Yes, and
I'm
Tatang,
here.
yeah,
My
and Tatang
friend
was
is
so
here visiting me,
flirtatious.
and yeah.
Diba
So
Tatang was
he's
so
wearing
flirtatious.
like a long sleeve shirt, and then his what do you call, like his chaleco vest.
I
Mm.
He-
remember seeing the pictures. Yeah, yeah.
and for a long time I never saw him to wear any running shoes. he used to wear dress shoes when he did demos. Not until a student from the Inosanto camp in California came over and trained with him, and he was very much, I would say, a enamored with the experience that he wanted to get as many, how would you say, like souvenirs. So he actually offered Tatang, like, can I give you like new shoes, running shoes for your dress shoes? He actually kept the dress shoes.
Think
So
about
Yeah, you
there it is, if it's still there. But
think
yeah,
about that. I
that's
wonder
the
if he still
story
got
why you
them.
see some photos of him in running shoes.
Okay, because that. Oh, that's too funny. Wow. So,
uh,
um,
yeah.
Sixo, just tell just for the viewers. I mean, I think it's incredible you guys actually got to spend time with him and all that, and just I mean, I would I would have relished the idea of that. When I found out about him, unfortunately, he had just passed. You know what I mean? So, wasn't a lot happening on my end. So just did you guys ever experience like being fed by him, or you feed him a strike and he would just do whatever?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He he would hurt you.
Yeah.
He would hurt you. Yeah.
I have it on
Uh,
video. He was hitting me in the
he,
temples, the fingers.
yeah. He would smash your hand. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
you guys seen that flyer? It's on. I posted it one time some months back. He goes, if you train with me, I'm going to train you the old way. Your hands will hurt, but something along those lines, what was said, but it kind of parallels what you just said. Your hands are they're gonna hurt.
mm,
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is which
yeah.
is which is kind of
Actually,
interesting because, like, from what I heard was like Remy Presas, his inspiration for coming up with modern harness back then was like, kids were getting hurt, and who would also want to send their kids to learn when they're getting hurt?
Yeah,
So
when their hands are getting busted up because there's no
yeah,
protective
and then
gear.
I was like, what does that mean? Until I met an old school instructor who's like, oh my god, yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's a tough sell. Hey, sign this. I'm going to sign you up for weapons,
Yeah,
but there's no protective gear and there's no soft sticks, but you're going to love it. I mean, that's they're coming home
yeah.
with their hands like, yeah.
But from what I
actually,
remember,
if I remember Tatang, it was ow, ow, ouch, ouch. That's my memory of Tatang
yeah.
when he was teaching us.
But the pain I got was not commensurate to what even Mang Tony got from what I remember, because Mang Tony,
Yeah.
his like nails, they were like black and blue, and so I think some nails are even cracked. So I'm like, oh my god, boy,
Yeah,
like
Montoya had a lot of scars
his
here,
thumb
di
was
ba?
yeah, his thumb was totally dark. So
Yeah,
yeah,
God knows what he went through. I mean, right. I mean, being the first one to get him to teach. I mean, exactly. Gosh. Ugh. So give us all right. So Sixo, he's feeding you, and you're feeding him rather, and he's just finding the gap and hitting your hands and wherever else.
Yes, yes. Tatang was reactive. He was reactive. Eh. But then we never really experienced uh, a formal class in Filipino martial arts because normally it was one on one or just the two of us. So that's the way we learned. And again, like you said, to show Tatang a knife, a stab, he counters, then do it again. He does something else.
Yeah, everybody
So
says that because the angle is slightly different, or your fade was just different, or
yeah.
the orientation was different, or the speed was different, the angle. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
during
that's
that
why,
time,
like,
I didn't know that. I
yeah,
didn't know that. My FMA wasn't mature yet, but
Yeah,
later,
yeah,
like
yeah, understood.
I
I would have been
started
lost. Yeah.
understanding.
I would have been
yeah,
lost. Are you kidding me? I
and,
would have just been
and
like,
and I remember like Leo Gahe trying to explain to me also, and this is connected to Tatang's approach and Mang Tony's approach. That like when Gahe, GT Leo Gahe, he loved to tell. He's a talker. He loved to tell stories, and he
mm,
felt like a father. Like you're waiting for something, you're having coffee. Oh, let's have coffee first. He spent an hour having
Coffee
coffee, and
for
it's just
2 hours.
like so.
Coffee for
It's
two
all like
hours.
not only training the physical, but also training your brain, your mental.
yeah, I enjoy that.
Right?
I
I think that's part of his training.
like
So he
talking
used
about
to tell me. I used to ask him like, "Hey, we used to refer to him as Tuhon back then. He used to grill us, refer to me as Tuhon. not sir, not master, tuhon. So again, I was used to like there were only two tuhons during that era, him and Nene Tortal.
Yeah.
If I slipped into referring to him as tuhon, it's not a matter of disrespect, but
No, it's just what you were used to. I get you.
yeah. So back then, I asked him like tuhon, like like I meet people like from the US, like now on the internet, asking me this, asking me that question, like when am I gonna learn the Seguidas? When am I gonna learn the 64 attacks? When am I gonna He's like, Basti, you're learning those concepts, but I don't want to spend time for you to like get confused with the words. That's the American way. I want to teach you the traditional Filipino way of making you an intuitive fighter. You and your I'm training you guys to fight in tournaments and also spar against each other. And I don't want you guys to be like, held back by like terminology, held back by like formalities and all that. I want it to be more like intuitive. Somebody
interesting
without thinking, he tell me, and I could tell this story to you again because he used to tell this to me like almost every single day. Like, Basti, a kid from America, how do they teach them? Like the father points to a car. Hey, Johnny, what's that? That's a car. What's that?
Yeah.
Car. Basti, a Filipino, a boy points to something. What does the father say? Figure it out for yourself. Go and see what it's for.
Interesting. I think that's so interesting what you brought up. I wonder because he went over there and he saw, and I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, whoever's listening, please don't take this as conclusive. I'm just wondering what you mentioned, far as that's what the Americans get. I wonder if there was influence of being exposed by Guru Dan and how Guru Dan did things. I'm just speaking out loud. I'm not saying right.
To be honest, like it was also out of necessity because if you're not teaching the traditional way and you're trying to spread the gospel, it is necessary to, focus on names and even like
structure a curriculum.
Because like there's no way you could teach 100 people during
especially if you go to
traditional way of one-on-one.
Yeah,
right?
You better have a syllabus.
So there's no plus or minus to that, and I'm not putting down any.
Well, same here. So I'm just more interested. I agree with you. I don't think there's a plus or minus. I just find it fascinating the descriptive words he used to you over there, and I'm just thinking out loud, like, was it the influence of what he's seen over here to make it, like you said, to propagate the art, to follow those channels? But with you guys there, home base, hey, no, you guys are gonna get this stuff. No, you guys are fighters. You know what I mean?
That's why I got my brother and I had problems, like also interacting with some other people from other parts of the world, because when they try to discuss us, like, are you really training under so and so instructor and so and so instructor? Yeah. So could you tell me like series number 4 and what? How do you? I'm like,
we don't know that. We don't know.
Like scratching our head. What do you mean?
You don't. That doesn't mean that you guys are not genuine and all that. It was a different time area, different country where you got it.
Yeah.
That stuff kind of, in your guys' defense, that kind of bothers me. Like you get put on the spot, you get quizzed, and because maybe you don't get the answers right and all that because it's different. What you're not validated. I just.
So even up to now, like
this example, the 64 attacks, we did not learn that from Tuhon. We did not learn that we learned that from Dog Marcaida,
who was under
Omar
Hakim,
and Tom
Bizio, and
One two on here.
And back then, Bill McGrath as well, I think, back then.
Yeah, interesting though. I just find this stuff kind of interesting, like the historical stuff like that. I just think,
and it's all the same for all the arts we practiced, even with Lameco, because like when Lameco was taught to us, June and Edgar were also trained with each other. Of course, Punong Guru Edgar had to present it to the US, had to come up with more formal terminology.
Laurels, right?
Approach to teaching. And just imagine going to the Inasanto Academy doing a seminar, right, without having a structure.
No, when you get exposed by Dan, I think I have a lot of these guys. You get invited to the academy. you see the structure and organization, kind of the quote unquote American way of giving information out, the delivery of information, the methodology, and much to your point, I think that's they kind of some shape, way, or form adapted that, you know?
Yeah. So it's the same. So Grand Tuhon Gahe was able to put it into words.
Mm.
I was trying to understand with all the other instructors because same thing with Tatang Illustrisimo, where it's like I'm like, why am I not learning like by sequence?
Hmm.
You teach me like attack number one, then this is counter number one versus like strike me. Okay. And then he counters. And the next
Yeah,
time you counter, there's another counter. And I'm like, why? Because I didn't know that you were also being trained to be intuitive in your
that's the way we were trained. And
yeah.
that's more or less the way we teach. It's more intuitive. He would check
Mm.
how good we were that day. Again, when we were training, it was only the two of us, or maybe with RJ, three or four,
Yeah.
with
Well,
Mr. John Malihan, remember?
Yeah.
We were just a handful of students. He would check each, okay, that's the way you move. This is lacking. Let's add this. Let's add that. It
mm.
wasn't really structured. On this day, I'll teach you this. Next week, that. No. It was, he would look at us first, then he would adjust the training according to our skill level that day.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
more of a boxing approach. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I mean, it's great. We're man. I think there's gonna be a part two. I mean, fascinating intros on both your guys, and I thought some of the information was absolutely fascinating. And I thank you both for sharing that. Let's go. Okay. Let's get into the question here. Let's start with you, Sixto. What obviously, as you guys just mentioned, obviously exposed to a lot of different systems and all that. And all that. So, what was the benefit? Again, in a general answer, so to speak. What was the benefit that you guys, and maybe you didn't realize it at the time, maybe reflecting back now, you do see a bigger, better picture of all the different styles that you trained in. What do you think what the benefit was, or benefits? What do you think, Sixo?
It gave us a um, bigger picture, bigger picture on concepts, techniques. Because what Baste and I would actually do was, let's say one of the masters would teach us a technique. We will go to the other master and ask him, hey, master, what about this technique? How do you counter this? Oh, that's how to counter that. Then we go back to the other master. Hey, master, how do you counter this technique? I learned this counter for that. So we had first, we learned directly from them what to do. Unlike in others, oh, probably this is what Tatang would do. Probably this is what Leo Gahi would do. In our case, we were able to ask directly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Without of course telling them that this is what I found through something else. But yeah.
Yeah, but right, you guys have the source right there. You're not getting a third hand or what? Yeah. Yeah. Wow. How about you, Basse? With the accumulation, all the different styles, I guess looking back, what do you think some of the best things or the benefits that you got out of it? I guess it could be conceptual, it could be an actual technique, it could be the relationship with the person. I mean, really, anything, you know?
Um well, one benefit I would say like from going through like an apprenticeship through several masters is also eventually being able to well I'm an analyst by trade. So
By default. Yeah,
yeah, so from work as well, like my
yeah, yeah.
so so I right now I'm thinking like, okay, why did Pikiti came about? Why did Leo Gahe focus on this?
Mm,
And makes me think too like, okay, how did Illustrisimo came about? How did Tatang come up with this?
yeah.
Or how did Lameco get to be like this? How did Caballero be like this? And to me, like I analyze like the environment,
Mm,
their location, climate, their body structure, their culture, their temperament. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
so I was able to appreciate all of that and thinking like, okay, so looking into this, how do I apply this to myself? Who am I the most similar in body type to? And if
Mm,
a fighter similar to a instructor who had a different body type or upbringing or culture, how do I approach that? And I already have kind of like a model for that, having seen firsthand how a good master of the same build, the same background would have, approached the situation.
yeah.
Just to comment too, like I remember Master Tony Diego or Mang Tony is when Edgar already went to the US and there was a lot of interest for people, especially California, flying to Luneta to go for a weekend to be taught or whatever. Was like the most common block. One of the most common blocks is whatever you call it, the inward
Inward deflection or inward block.
or some call it a variant Australia or whatever. Whenever he asked them to do that, they would go down low and expose their head for a 6 foot guy. And Mang Tony was saying, "It's like you're 6 feet tall. I'm a lot shorter than you. Why are you bringing your head down to me?"
Yeah, right. Overcompensating.
So yeah, but again, I'm not saying that they were taught wrongly.
Mm,
Appreciating the fact that probably their instructor were relatively like, you know, Philippine size,
mm,
4 and below, from that generation, and that suited that environment. So that's what I'm just saying. Like, if I were born taller like my brother, Illustrissimo suits him very well as compared. It does to me too, but he has more of an advantage using Illustrissimo, following Tatang Illustrissimo, and my model too for looking at how would have Tatang been being younger back then. How would his body have looked like? We were also good friends with Samuel
mm.
Illustrissimo, who was Tatang's
Yeah, yeah.
what was he, a grand nephew?
Grandnephew, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he was our teammate during competitions. He would
he
fight
was my sparring
under,
partner.
yeah, he would fight under Yuli
Mang
Romo
Yuli.
because back then what's interesting to Luneta was like we treated Tatang as the grand master,
Mm,
and the different offshoots having their own fighting team for tournaments. That's how it worked before. So you had like the main, well, not the main KI, but a KI team under Mang Tony. And
okay.
Lameco, you had Pamantukan under Yuli Romo used to call this, had this other art before called Pamantukan. And then you had like Calicom Palasan,
Palasan Pedring Romo.
Padring, who is his brother.
His brother. Okay, yeah.
It's a matter, but those are the four major teams so we were very sparring and tournament oriented back then. That when we went tournaments, it was really fun because there's like four big groups, and whenever we have trophies, we let Tatang carry it. But Samuel would do well, because like for his height and he's using Illustrissimo, and you could see his arms were like God, like concrete. and
Samuel had good genetics. He had
Yeah.
very good genetics.
He had the Illustrissimo genetics. So I'm thinking like, wow, So whenever I visualize Tatang, like how would Tatang would have been like when he was younger, with the power, with more power, and more muscle. And I'm thinking like, yeah, it's Samuel. That's how I saw him during sparring. And sad to say Samuel already passed away. So he would have been the nearest you would have seen in terms of just gauging Tatang's body type. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
memories for us.
like body types. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's why I kind of like AI because, like, I like that staying like tall, erect, and the long and all that. Like for me to do, there's nothing against the system. I don't want people getting the wrong idea here, but for me to do like Kabbalah, Serrata, I mean, like it wouldn't make any sense for me to like crouch up. You know what I mean? And again, I think it's a great system. I have nothing against it, but I like what you said there. Like, yeah, gravitate, like use your physical what you have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, not to put down any other style or instructor. What I was just trying to explain was like the evolution of their art. all,
Mm.
again, their personality, their culture,
Yeah, I think
their environment, their body type, and
absolutely. No, no, absolutely.
and
Just all right. I want to get because I got a question here, and then let me see. Uh, okay. All right. Alvin's got a question here. Then we'll get to Elria. After learning from such a wide variety and styles of teachers, what masters do you still try to emulate with respect to movement, teaching style, and etc.? Sixto, you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, sure, sure. The thing about the masters is at their level, Mang Tony, Mang Eric, Leo, recently now with Master Arnold, no, all of them focus on conditioning. All of them were strong. Basta, right? Jun
yeah.
Pueblos he was very much in shape. He was an ex-acrobat, by the way, so he was very much in shape.
Hmm.
Used to have a
Um,
unicycle too that's like 12 feet tall.
Oh,
yeah, he, he,
Yeah.
he was an acrobat. Mang Tony had large forearms. He was very fit. When we met Leo Gahe, he took our barbell in our house, removed the weights, and he would swing the bar. And
that's why I think shape. Yeah.
he was I think 54 or 55 then.
Wow.
Mang Eric had very big forearms. He wasn't a short, scrawny guy.
Yeah, yeah.
He was strong. He was powerful.
And he was
So
a hard kung fu stylist too.
Mm.
that's why I see a lot of them. I look at their similarities.
Mm.
They train a lot. They have this passion. I try to copy that. I really try to copy
Yeah.
that.
And
They speak about their art all the time. I look more at the similarities rather than
The
the
differences.
difference at this
Yeah,
stage.
yeah.
and,
No.
and especially
And
for
another thing, Abastef, another thing is all of them would focus on biomechanics, proper
Biomechanical.
biomechanics.
Yeah,
For
delivery.
example, Mang Tony was very specific with that. When you block, when you counter, let's say with a knife or a stick, you should be able to counter at the same time your opponent cannot counter you. For each attack, let's say the blade, there's a specific angle so you don't damage your blade. Mang
Okay.
Tony was very particular with those things. And with the other guys, let's say Mang Eric was more stick based.
Yeah, blunt. Right, right.
He was very specific. You don't stab with a stick.
Mm.
With a stick, you hit specific areas, just the
Bone.
bony areas. You don't.
Yeah.
It's different with a blade. With a blade, you can basically hit anywhere. With a stick, it has to be the head, hand, elbows.
Mm.
So they were teaching certain specifics. They focused on certain specifics, and until now, I remember that.
Okay.
Leo guy focused a lot on mindset, which is sometimes funny, but he was correct. What's the use of learning knife fighting? We all play knife fighting, blah 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 blah. But do you have the heart to actually stab somebody?
Yeah. Something you might want to think about, right?
Yes. Are you willing to? So
Good.
again, FMA is not. This is not ballet.
Yeah.
This is fighting. And anyway, I'd like to say a lot of people have forgotten that this is fighting. We
Yeah.
need to have that mindset.
Yeah. No. No. Well said. Baste, anything you want to contribute to that?
yeah, I'd say like just to expound a bit, we do remember that both Mang Tony and Coach Arnold also had boxing as their foundations. Uh,
Mm. Okay.
well, they're both Cebuano too, which is kind of interesting. So it's also kind of interesting how you see the mindset too of people coming from different regions. You had Leo Gahe, who's Ilonggo, and I think June was like Visayas.
Amis.
Ozamis from Ozamis.
Yeah, he's
So
Bisaya.
they all had like they were proud to talk about where they come from.
Okay.
And they were also proud, especially for these traditional martial arts, to talk about who they learned from.
Mm.
Like I've never heard of any of them, like talk, badly about their instructors. It's always praises for like,
Yeah, yeah. Hellman Heinstein. Yeah.
yeah, regardless of whether they've maintained that relationship or not,
Mm.
they've spoken about the good that they've gathered. But yeah, just to add to my brother's descriptions on lessons learned. Yeah, like from June Pueblos, it was like an emphasis on like consistency. Again,
And
like
basics.
basics plus also mental consistency.
Mm.
Some disses you off, forget it, practice, focus on the tournament. You know, he had that mindset, which was kind of great. And I would think like, and he would always tell stories about when Edgar Solite was still in the Philippines, and it was just a mere dream to go to America.
Mm.
He had a
Oh,
photo of Danny
yeah.
Inosanto. He had a poster of Danny Inosanto on the wall,
Oh, no kidding.
and
Okay.
he would be like pretending that he'd be fighting Danny Inosanto.
Oh,
So
that's too funny.
from that story, I learned visualization, right? Because who
Yeah.
would have known that a decade or more later he would be sparring Dan Inosanto in person
Right.
in
And
hell.
teaching him, and actually teaching him. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
So from that you could see like consistency and dedication to your craft.
Mm.
Yoga, yeah, I agree. Like it's mentality. He pretty much would teach the same lessons with
Mhm.
different stories. And sometimes, it's like this uncle who never stops saying the same story every single day. But you're like, yeah, dad, or whatever. But he would say the same thing about like, Pastor, I taught this master in the US. I
Ah,
but no, I'm just saying like don't be like him in terms of like I could teach him like 1,000 techniques, but does he have the heart to be a fighter?
yeah.
So he always drilled us like able to do this. You should just be like partying and clubbing Saturday nights. Don't come here 6 in the morning on Sunday if your heart's not into this, or
Mm.
think that you really understand that this is a fighting art. So you gotta have a fighter's mentality. That if ever you get into like something, it's gotta be intuitive. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
like this person who bugs me like to teach them 1,000 techniques but can't execute. So that was that without mentioning names from who he mentioned, and he
Mm.
was citing that's an example of not being a collector of techniques,
Right.
Yeah.
being an effective fighter. That's
Yeah.
what is ingrained in us.
Right, right.
And with Master Eric, it was mainly like being consistency was part of it, but also like focus and precision. That whenever like he always had that game face.
Mm.
Like it's like and wherever he wants the stick to go, whichever target, it's kind of like a heat-seeking missile because like he always with
Gee.
intention, and that's what I got from him. Like focus and intention. That once you start training, you gotta like get the job done and think about all other stuff after you train and
Yeah, yeah.
your time efficiently. Um,
Um,
so yeah, those are kind of like lessons learned. For for like lately, like we've also been in touch with some of our mentors, including Mang Romy, Mang Yuli, Mang Romy Makabagal, Mang Yuli, and of course our coach right now, Arnold Narzo, and
yeah.
I keep on going on circles, but it's all interconnected.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, no, it's all connected, and you just made full. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
yeah. People would think like you guys started in early 1990s, and you still have a coach. And like, yes, I mean like
yeah,
because like
Yeah.
we were fortunate to have met the founder and the number two of the founder, and then all this like like
yeah. Look at the lineage. Like you
and
guys.
and,
Yeah.
and up to now we have like Master Arnold who's taken over the reins to take care of the Luneta group, head coach of Kiro. So and also like there's a difference between being a teacher, I would say, and a performer. And my
Mhm.
and I kind of like have this mentality that will be like Well, probably sparring until we end up in our graves or something. So
Yeah, if it's in you, I agree, man. If it's in you, if it's in your DNA, it's in you. You know
yeah,
what I
so
mean? You know,
and
like I'm
that's why
not.
up to now we still have a coach. We have Coach Arnold because like it's different, and even Coach Arnold actually mentioned this story about even with him and Mang Tony, where he said like, "Hey Arnold, the problem with me feeding you all the time is like I don't see myself, I don't see my feet, I don't see myself at all. I just see you. So whenever you teach as well, just be mindful that when you execute something or your student executes something, you get to see the whole picture, or there's a
Mhm.
third watching over you who knows what they're doing to also like point you out that hey, your foot's a bit off there,
Yeah, yeah.
here. So in our case, like we're still training to to, to perform, not to teach. So that's why we still have a coach to guide us.
Yeah,
Uh, like it's
right.
also we've also had the benefit of like having students, I mean like instructors who've been with different masters through their different phases in life. Tang being younger or old, or Montoni being younger or old, and we had Master Arnold who's like younger now. So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah,
like an
I mean, I think you guys like seen the whole. I mean, it's like you know, you know, grandparent, parent. I mean, you guys are seeing like the whole
yeah.
lineage. You know?
And even with Pekiti, I mean like the time we trained, that was the time I think with Leo Gahe. If I may be wrong, but from what I understand, that was the time when he got back from the US. And of course he had students. That was when he was teaching, I think, Rommel Tortala Force in Bacolod, but in Manila he had no students. So he was kind of reestablishing himself to come up with a team, and his
Mm,
back then was to have a team that would fight in tournaments. So when people would ask like, "What's your experience with Leo Gahe back then versus what they're showing me with their experiences with Leo Gahe right now?" Of course, him being 80 plus years old now versus when he was 50 plus,
yeah,
his
right.
his focus was also different with us in that regard. So, one last thing I want to insert was like Leo Gahe also loved to push you to the limit
Yeah,
without you knowing. like,
yeah.
um, Alan Sicchetti. Um,
Oh my God, there's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Okay. so 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 I got a pager message, Leo guy saying like, "Boys, be ready tomorrow. Get a car. We will have a Alan Sicchetti from the US. He will be coming with his camera. We will come up with a movie for Bikini Tirsha. The Calicrons." And I'm like, okay. So we made sure there was a van. We picked up Leo guy. So when we got there, as soon as the camera was set up, he didn't even tell us, there's no briefing or whatever. He put a knife on the ground, the soccer field. He held a stick, like at the head level or shoulder level, and he had like, "Okay, boys, line up. Guys, jump. When you jump, you land your hand on the knife and you roll. That's going to be on video. No retakes. Go." I've done rolling before in soccer and also like judo, but I was
Oh
fast.
my
I
God.
never jumped more than shoulder height, and I'm doing it for the first time. And he's like, "Oh my god, I didn't even know I could do this," But I just jumped. Camera was rolling,
Yeah,
and
you didn't get a chance to think about it. You just reacted and did it, and it came out. You know what I mean? Like if you had to like sit there and ponder, like I got to do a forward roll, and I got to pick this up. You know what I mean?
jump shoulder height. And one time was like when we had the big conference in Subic Bay, and Mark Denny was there, Phil Jalina,
98, 98.
yeah, Mark Denny, all these other guys from the US, and who else is there? Uh,
Loki,
well, of course, Rommel. A lot of the current two Hons were there. Rommel, as well as Loki Jorgensen.
Samuel, Nono Igorucho.
Yeah, so a lot of people you would see as two Hons now are
Yeah.
actually,
Okay. Like Sled Dog, Gobelinas,
yep,
some of
and so on and so forth. But what I was gonna say was like he never told us we were gonna have sparring at a certain time.
the.
So Leo guy loved to train early in the morning and get you hungry. So
We didn't sleep.
we started at 5, I think, and we were partying. We were a lot younger back then, 20, 24, 25 years back then. So we were partying, and we were in a beach resort area. So yeah, we were drinking the night before, and we were like training
We were
tomorrow. Like, who cares?
we were out
that
we
will-
were out in town with Alvin, and we were drinking a lot. We were
Yeah.
drunk. We
yeah.
didn't
So
sleep.
we
Didn't
woke
sleep.
up the following day for 5 o'clock
Oh,
of Longstaff, Malayo Sibat at the beach. And then I think we ended around lunchtime. So I was super hungry already. So we're like, hey, let's go to like out of the resort and get some food. Like so we went for like Chinese food or something. So me and our team, the Calitrons, we ate, and I was like so hungry. I ate a lot, not caring. Like, yeah, I'm sure Tuhon's gonna have his siesta. We're not gonna start again until 3. So like I ate a lot because I was like super hungry, and we were drinking. I was hungover from the night before. So guess what? When we were parking, and I was like, as soon as I opened the door of the van, I heard this voice on the microphone. Like I knew it was Leo Guy's voice. It's like, Basti, where are you? Are you scared of Phil Jalinas? He's already having his gear on, and you're hiding. Where are you, Basti? Come over. And I'm like, sparring? I'm full. What the heck? So I really sprinted. I sprinted from the parking lot of the van. That was my warm up. Having a full belly, running from the running from the van of the parking lot to the ballroom of the hotel.
Zanzibar.
I got there. I put my gear on, and next thing I knew, I was already there fighting Phil Jalinas. And I wasn't afraid of fighting. I was more afraid of like, am I gonna throw up?
are you going to throw up through your mask and
We-
he's going to be like getting residual?
Yeah,
We all
and-
threw up, Baste. We all threw up. You threw up. I threw up. Alvin Aguilar threw up after our fights. Everybody threw up.
So that's what I'm saying. Everything with him is like, he pushes you to the limit. Like,
Mm.
oh, I thought I was gonna be resting after lunch, and he's here like yelling,
It, man. Yeah,
"No,
I
that's,
know.
it's your brother," and I'm like, okay.
We were throwing up alcohol.
yeah. Oof, man. Yeah, now you can laugh back at it, but sure, like it was probably that point was like one of the worst days of your life.
Yeah, still alive.
I have a question from Elric. Another question from Elric. His other questions we kind of touched on already, like were you guys talking about the different arts and how they, and all that. So, scary skills from each teacher. So, who wants to tackle this first? Scary skills from each teacher. So, if we take, let's do this. If we look at the teachers, obviously GML Simone, Mong Ovida, and Leo, Tuan Leo,
Tony.
Mong Tony, whoever you guys want to throw in there, June Pueblos, whoever you guys want to talk about. But scary skills from each teacher.
Okay, but still, let's start. I think let's do it chronologically. Let's start with Kuya June, with June Pueblos. Okay, with June Pueblos, it was power shots. First day of training, we were already hitting targets. It wasn't, okay, form, no. Let's get a target. Let's hit it 1,000 times. Basta remember?
And his vocabulary always included meteoric because of the Caballero influence. So meteoric,
Yeah, meteoric strikes. Yeah.
with intention, always trained with intention.
Yeah.
His strikes always like had a sound, like a whooshing sound.
Yeah, it's hearing that air. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, so who's after that? Next.
Basta Tatang?
Sure.
Okay. Ikaw, basta.
What's not scary?
well, one thing about Tatang is like, people talk about the physical. I'm
It's
not.
very nice. Tatang was very nice to us.
Yeah.
The head coming down, like, scalping you.
Well, to kind of like deviate from that, but just to give a different side of the man. Like people always talk to him as like, oh, he's like an axeman. He's like a blood. I'm like, okay, but he was actually, like I said, he wore always his Sunday best.
No, I hear you. I heard. I mean, Burton has told me that when he went over there the few times he went over there, that he was like like really nice, like
Yeah,
Okay, ser-
and
cordial, answering questions, showing anything, you know.
And my favorite story, personal story with Tatang was like one time he approached me and talking about scary skills or whatever. People always talked about Tatang's metaphysical and honestly, like Coach
Orasyon.
Arzo has a lot of more personal stories to talk about that because like I'm more of a city boy. I,
Mhm.
I was more into like back then Arnold Schwarzenegger and Rambo was out. I was very a physical guy. I wanted to learn how to stab people or hit people and whatever.
Rambo.
Yeah, metaphysical, not as much back then. So, but yeah, he was known, and I was being teased by my teammates. Like when I told you there was that guy who trained in the U.S. who went to learn with Tatang. So he also fought in the tournament under the KI banner for a
Mm.
tournament. I was playing for Lameco for a team tournament. So my teammate was like, "Oh my God, you're in big shit." I'm like, "Great shit." Like, why? I'm like, "I can beat that guy. I'm sure." Like, no, 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 no. Tatang just like put something in his mouth, like an amulet or something, like a stone, like a mystical stone that gives you power or something.
Or about the prayer or whatever they always told me.
Yeah, oracion. So they were like, and he was like whispering something to his ear. I'm sure he
Mm.
already Latin prayer.
He's going
Yeah.
that way.
So
Mm.
I'm like, okay. So my teammates were teasing me about that. So
Mm.
so back then I didn't believe much about that. But one time like Tatang, when we were in Luneta, out of the blue walked up to me 10 feet away, and I'm like, what does he want? So he reached through his pocket. So I thought like, oh, maybe he's gonna give me something. Or give me like one of those amulets for as a souvenir. That would be cool.
Yeah.
When he took his hand out, he actually had a comb. And he's like, Basti, your hair's kind of like off. The wind's blowing. Could you fix yourself? I was saying like he's a gentleman. And he wanted to wear his Sunday best on Sundays. He
Ah,
wanted to look great in front of the ladies. That he was teaching
just
you to be like Batman. That when you're like, what's his alter ego? Batman's alter ego, Bruce Wayne. When
Yeah.
you're Wayne, be a gentleman, look good.
Right.
Not
Right. And yeah.
right,
Wow.
but in front of the ladies, look good. That was
Yeah. That's
Cristino. So
Tatang's superpower is his flirtatious. If there was a woman there, he would flirt. That's it.
his
I
power
hear
of
you.
his words.
Quite the ladies' man.
Yeah.
And of course like his unexpected strikes. He could just strike from anywhere because also
And
like he would not think. He was like an old man. He's like walking around,
Telegraphic, huh? Yeah.
like hit you here in the temple, and I'm like, ouch, where did that come from?
Yeah. Ah,
So to
yeah.
me, it was like, oh my god, this is like Bruce Lee stuff. You know, uh, so
Yeah. He's man. How about all right? So we covered June.
June,
The amulet.
Tatang,
No. Is Guy next?
Mang Tony, I think.
I'm Tony, yeah.
Montoni. So scary skills from Montoni.
I think the main skill of Mang Tony is able to break down each technique. Mang Tony was a very his mind. Mang Tony was a very smart guy.
It's a
He
technician.
he and he knows a lot. Mang Tony has a very high IQ. We were discussing, the things we would discuss about physics. We would talk about physics and Isaac Newton. Mang
Interesting.
Tony was very smart,
And
so
you
he would look
you
at
would
the
just
technique, break it down, explain everything about the technique.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah. And he was a cockfighter, so he would have his fighting cocks in the. He used to raise fighting cocks. You would think that what does this guy know? Because my brother and I would be gifting him fighting cock magazines. He's like, oh, great. But little would you know that suddenly out of the blue, he's like, hey, Basti, have you read like Swish of the Chris? You should read that. And I'm like, oh, you read that kind of stuff too. Okay, great. So he's very
Hmm.
grounded in that regard. He loves his sports, all the manly stuff. At the same time, he's very philosophical. But
Yeah.
from a technical point of view, like my brother always mentioned this too, was like he had very refined movements, surgical movements. That even a number one strike would be very kind of like, how would I say, if it could be properly executed, you know how like in statistics you have like a margin of error.
Yeah.
You would have the least margin of error in terms of like having a strike in terms of like going through the right trajectory and also like executing movements. He's very precise in that regard.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Wow, wow. Sixto, Guy, scary skills from Tuhan Leo.
Um, scary skills actually is it's his persuasion. He can persuade you to do anything.
Yeah,
Uh, he
I hear about that. Yeah.
he was able well, physically he was able to persuade me to test my limits. He would tell me, "Oh, that shot, you won't die from that. Come on, let's go." Like we were training Malayo. Remember ba si Malayo si Bat?
Yeah.
He was teaching us
Staff,
Malayo staff because when we were training with him, he would focus on that. I
Mhm.
got smashed on the head. I got dizzy. He would say, just shake it off. Let's go.
Yeah, your brain cells are like.
yeah. And
I think I lost a few IQ points training with him. Uh,
yeah,
I got smashed on the thumb, but again,
Mhm.
he would say, "Okay, just rub it. Come
Yeah,
on,
you're
let's
good.
continue
Get back
training."
in.
it's like Mr. Miyagi. He would come up with this like
Yeah, like some lotion or cream, yeah, or some magical potion or something.
yeah. But speaking of persuasion, he had a different way of doing it too. Sometimes that you're not sure whether he's joking or if he's really serious or jokingly serious.
Mm.
You know, because like I have a birthmark, and he would be like, "Basti, that's good. You have the power of King Kong." Is that a compliment? Is that are you trying to motivate me? And later on, like, harder, harder. You're King Kong, and I'm like,
I don't want to be King Kong.
he's a
So,
great motivator. Scary skills, like yeah. People always think of the physical, but people forget about grandmasters having a good coaching ability and
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
Yes.
favor of
absolutely.
Yes.
doing it.
That they can
Yes.
motivate you. I mean,
That's the
yeah,
important part.
that's a
And
skill.
that's what I think. Again, segueing is missing in a lot of Filipino martial arts right now, where people let me go through the whole 100 unit, um, 100 sections of the course and give you my certificate. But again, like what Leo Guy and Tatang and Mang Tony and even Arnold and Mang Romy and Yuli and everyone else would say, like, you know, fine, you could have 1,000 techniques, but do you have the heart, or can you execute under
Yeah,
stress?
yeah. I like less is more, man.
Yeah.
Like I don't do well if I get flooded with a ton of stuff. Like if it's based on memorization and a lot of drilling, I like the attribute development and like
And
that. I get lost.
and
Yeah.
actually,
Your
what's
own.
interesting is some people, ask them, have you ever done this technique, done that technique? Honestly, like consciously,
Mm,
like I'm fighting now, I'm gonna do the whatever, contra serrada or this. But I've applied it at times against a less, less, I would
yeah,
say,
some of that stuff, man, get somebody really skilled, non-telegraphic. You're not gonna be pulling. I
yeah,
mean, that's gonna be
but
tough. Like
yeah,
Alcantara, Media. That's gonna be if they're really
for a less
non-telegraphic. It's gonna
less
be tough.
experienced less experienced opponent, I've done it unexpectedly because it's all like intuitive.
Yeah, like you're seeing, they telegraph. Maybe you saw. I mean, you saw the development of their strike. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I
It's
agree.
like it's like the Matrix. I'm like, wait, he was just about to execute and
Mm,
it's already in his head. How did that happen? Oh,
jeez. Wow. Sixto,
Uh,
scary skills from Mong Eric.
okay. This one I specifically remember. We went to. I was with John Malihan, so we went to Ozami City. He can hit my eyelash with a stick.
Right.
That's how he would say, "Okay, guys, come here." Bang! He has a stick. Okay, I just got a stick.
I hear your speed and accuracy was off the charts.
He has a stick, let's say this way, and he would hit you on the eye, on the eyelash, bang, and
That's
he would do it full speed.
I don't know if I'd be signing up for that.
Uh, he, he he didn't tell us. He would just do it. Diba baste? When he stayed in our house for weeks. He would demo. Okay, guys, come here. Boom.
Yeah, that's wow. Are you guys still in touch with him?
No, actually, no, not really.
You're a private person. Yeah.
It's a very,
Yeah,
it's very
no,
recluse.
I've heard nothing but. I've heard nothing but. When I tried to get him on here, I mean, he was gracious enough to send in like a verbal audio, which better than nothing, of course.
Mm.
I did hear about the privacy, the shyness on camera, and etc. Yeah, too bad, too bad. But at least you guys got right in person, you know. And do we miss anybody? Scary skills. Do we miss anybody?
Masters. Yeah, I think that.
We missed
Well,
anybody?
you got the different flavor with like Yuli Romo. He's probably like has the skill of like making classes more interesting and funny, and
Yeah, yeah. Mang Yuli was a funny guy. He was a
you're
very
already
funny.
you're already sweating from like tropical heat and not noticing because you're just like laughing like
Yeah.
for 3 hours.
Be a fun person to hang out with. Like just on an interview with him, I could see he's got to be fun. You know what I mean?
And like with Mang Romy Macapagal, it's more of like the I would say,
Academician. It's
That's-
more. It's more of academic.
yeah,
Mang
and
Romy.
also like
Like,
counters to counters for the details to counters for KI. Yeah, he's very much into that.
the history, the Spanish influence.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes, Spanish influence. Yeah,
Yeah, I heard you
Spanish
really
fans.
deep into that. Okay. Yeah.
And and lately, like of course, we have Coach Arnold Narzo, so he's kind of like our kind of like piecing and things together again with Mang Tony, because again, like, these were like as you get older, it's good to have coaches and friends.
Sure. Yeah.
The same thing, and the type of question you ask now is like, do you remember? Do you remember seeing this? Do you remember hearing this?
Mm.
Because like I remember Tatang showing this. Do you remember that kind of technique? And then we kind of like, so he's got this great ability to for memory. I would say with Coach Arnold, and also like
I mean, he was around all of them. Yeah. You guys, that's pretty incredible, man. Your guys' exposure to some great ones there. I mean, you guys will look around. I mean, that's pretty. That's pretty neat. What you guys have been exposed. You know. We're good. Okay. Just looking at this, we're coming up on an hour and a half. It's up to you guys. We can do a part 2, or we can try to jam out. In other words, there's a couple more questions, and then of course, like your guys' whole system. We want to talk about the logo, the system, what you're currently doing, and the future. It's really up to you guys. Like how would you?
Baste? Part 2. This is gonna be long. This is gonna be long.
yeah,
You guys want to do part 2?
probably yeah, let's
Sure.
do part 2 and let people digest all this stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
That's kind of where I'm leaning to. What I found, just based on experience doing this, if we go like really long, what tends to happen is people, they kind of like, even though they find it great and like, oh my God, they're on. But if it's really long, sometimes it's hard for people to put themselves for that long to sit and watch the whole thing. But if we did like 2 parts, and what we could take off on the second part, it will kind of go nicely, is that we can go right into what your guys' system and what you guys are doing, your logo, which I thought was really neat, and why you guys came up with it, what you're currently doing, future stuff. Like there's a question from Chad. He wants to know online training. We can get into that. So I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, sure.
I could have this Thursday. I don't know exactly yet, but it doesn't have to be. I'm just throwing this out there. I could have this Thursday. I believe I have it open. We could do it as soon as Thursday, same time as that. If that didn't work, I mean, obviously no big deal. Just we could go with next week. It's you guys let me know. You know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Thursday was that.
Thursday works for me.
So,
Yeah, Thursday
so in
works.
other words, that would be 6:00. That would be your Friday AM.
Friday morning. Yeah.
And if we did 7,
Sure.
you're 1 or 2 hours behind me, Baste.
I think an hour.
You're just an hour behind me. Okay,
Yeah.
so it'd be 6 p.m. for you, 7 p.m. for me, and 8 a.m. Friday morning for you. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I know. I'm trying to manage like all these times. Like when I had like Guru, Brandon, Vico, and Jeff, it was like 4 different time zones. It's just like wow. But yeah, I think that'd be good because this has been absolutely fantastic. I'm like really enjoying this. Just some of the stuff that I wasn't. Yeah, people are saying part 2, please. Yes, we're gonna be doing a part 2. And it looks like it's going to be Thursday. I will definitely confirm if it's going to be Thursday. Matter of fact, I'll know if by tonight, absolute latest, I will know when's tomorrow morning and all that. But looks like this Thursday we'll do a part 2 and all that. And if you do, and
Okay.
if you're watching, if you want to submit more questions, PM me and we can definitely get to those. Any this has been absolutely wonderful. Any closing statements from you guys before we do part 2?
Um, I guess I'd like to say is, guys, let's keep on training. Less politics, less
Amen.
less arguing. Let's practice. Let's test our techniques. Let's keep an open mind.
Yeah, good stuff. How about you? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Baste?
Oh, me.
Instead,
I'd say ditto, especially like having spent decades here in the U.S., seeing a different flavor of things, and also like seeing the also evolution of the FMA culture too that's happened in the Philippines as compared to, and also even seeing how HEMA brotherhoods work. And I've noticed like I've been to one where we across sparring between HEMA and FMA, and I see like, oh my God, it's very different. It's more like a feeling of brotherhood amongst them playing the same thing as people would go fencing in an Olympic fencing
Yeah, that's interesting.
place, and there's no harm or hurt. Somebody gets,
Yeah.
and it's more like, hey, could you show me how did you do that? And
Mm.
everybody's are like brothers, and same thing with what my brother said. Like it's a small enough world for Kali, Eskrima, Arnis.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, really, we just got, one of the obviously, I'm not, one of the reasons why I started doing this show, was to, be part of the solution. Like it's very easy to complain, but like be part of the solution, like and like to try to bring the community together. Obviously more exposure to practitioners, teachers, and FMA as a whole, but really try to bring the community together. Because if you really think about it, we obviously have more in common than different. So
Yeah.
oh yeah, Dean. I'd like to say right now in FMA, I'm quoting another master now who's based in the States. He said before, I read this in Black Belt magazine. There are too many masters now and too few students.
yeah, we need more Indians.
Um,
Yeah, I'm fine with being
we need
Indian.
more.
Yeah,
We need people who train.
yeah,
Again,
I agree.
not people who talk too much. More people who train.
Yeah, no argument here. I don't need it. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, agreed. So, but yeah, I'll know. Like I said, I'll know tonight. But Thursday, as far as I can recollect it, there's nothing going on, so we can jam out part 2 Thursday.
Sure. We'll see you then.
Right.
And I'll run the same flyer for that, so we'll be good. You guys will, and I'll send you guys a message to confirm. So, but yeah, but I want to thank you guys for coming on, and I really appreciate it.
Right. Thanks, Dean.
Okay.
And, stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe. Stay
All right,
safe.
absolutely. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Leo.
Take care. All right, and there. Okay. All right. Wow, a lot of information on that one. Yeah. So part two should be Thursday. I'll know for sure tonight, latest tomorrow morning. But and so it'll be same time, 7 o'clock. Thursday. So hopefully that was good stuff. And if you haven't, this will be on FMA discussion once I download it. So if you haven't hit already, subscribe and hit like. Thank you.